Trojan Warriors, another great day together. Today we're going to look to answer the question, what does the path to success look like? When you are on that road, as you are walking towards greatness, that there is a happiness that you are chasing and you need to rise to the challenge along the way, what does that path look like, right? A lot of us, we like to have this feeling that, okay, well, I'm standing here today. Can I expect to be there in 7 days, 14 days, 6 months, 1 year? Like, what does my path look like? Will I need to make strides along the way? Will I need to add this credential, that certification? Will I need to raise money? What does my path to success look like? And when you're answering that question as you are chasing happiness in the Achoja lifestyle of rising to the challenge, I can tell you first and foremost that I can't answer that much of what your path to success looks like. I will talk about what each of our paths will have in common and some things that you can expect on that path. I think one of my favorite quotes that talks about what success looks like is from Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan says that I have missed over 9,000 shots. He says that I have, in 26 occasions, I've missed the game-winning shot. And he starts listing off these different failures in his life, and then he ends it by saying, I have failed over and over and over again, and because of that failure, I am a success. So the first thing I can tell you about success is you have to be able and willing and accepting the fact that you're going to fail, and you're going to fail miserably. You're going to fail on epic proportion. There are going to be people who are going to see you. They're going to be wondering, is he or she still on that path to success? Why haven't they left it yet? People are going to be telling you that, isn't this a sign that you shouldn't do this anymore? And I'm here to tell you that on your path to success, you have to look at failure as an opportunity to get better, to get stronger, to hone your craft, to understand maybe that wasn't the right time or that wasn't the right step, but that you are a better person now because of that. Too often we look at failure, and I know that for me personally, I look at each failure at times where I'll look at it as I should have done something better. I messed up on that. And while that is an accountable way to look and interact with the world, and it does serve me well in most cases, I do have to take a step back and say sometimes that, especially when I'm interacting with other people, that it has little to nothing to do with me, right? I can do everything right. I can explain the situation. I can give the solution that they need, but just something inside of them says, it's not my time yet. I'm not ready, right? They may be dealing with their own inner demons, and they are projecting that out when they say no. They're not saying no to me. Sometimes they're just saying no to themselves. And so I've had to learn that over the years, that it's not always the way that things look on the outside, that sometimes people are going to say no because they feel like they can't afford to do something. Sometimes people are going to say no because they just solved that problem yesterday, or because they're going through issues with relationships with their spouse or their family members. There are tons of reasons that people will say no to you, and there's only a couple that actually have to do with you. But as you're chasing happiness, as you are rising to the challenge and living the Achoja lifestyle, the only thing that you want to focus on is how much effort, how much preparation, and how much work have I put in, right? What does my process look like? Because if you have the right process and you follow that process on a daily basis, some people are going to say yes, some people are going to say no, and that's just the way it's going to be. That has little to do with what you've done if you have a sound process. Now, I will say that if you just have a fly-by-night and it's a bad process where I think Steve Harvey's quote is saying, he's like, it's a harebrained idea. I chuckle at that. But yeah, if you have a really bad idea, that the only people that would say yes to that are the uninformed or risk takers, or just people that love you and they just don't know how to say no, then you have to go back and create a better process, a newer process, a more succinct process. But the path to success, so it's going to be lined with failures. Now, you want to make sure you have the good process. And the reason I say that is I know what it's like to fail because you haven't prepared for that opportunity well enough. And that is one of the hardest failures to deal with, to wake up and look at the people who are counting on you and to tell them, we failed today because I didn't put the time in, I didn't put the work in, I wasn't consistent enough, I didn't do what I needed to do and what was necessary to succeed. There's little that's really harder than doing that. So you really want to make sure that you do what you can and what you can control, And then when things are starting to happen, that you make those adjustments and that you're committed, that you do exactly what you know that you need to do, because failure is going to happen anyways. But let's make sure the failure is outside of your control. Right? Like, let's not do things that will fail like 10 out of 10 times or 9 out of 10 times. Maybe you just snuck by 1 out of the 10. Let's do something that should work a reasonable amount of the time. And what I mean is reasonable, and you're going to loathe it, but I always say, you guys, you got to do the research. And the reason I'm always pushing research as one of the criteria for success is because you're going to find that we've been trained to respond to our feelings, that I have to feel like doing it, that I have to feel good about this, that I have to have some sort of instant gratification, and if things are tough, that means it wasn't for me, all that jazz, and none of that is true. The path to success, you are going to have to do things that you don't feel like doing. And that's why success is so hard, because most people do what they feel like doing, and some things you never feel like doing. You just won't ever feel like asking that. You won't feel like leaving that. You won't feel like risking that. So if you're only looking to feel like doing something, you might as well leave right now, because for you to live the Achoja lifestyle, for you to do something every single day, 365 or 66 days out of the year, then believe me when I tell you, there's going to be days that you just don't feel like doing it. And it's not even going to be completely your fault, right? There are going to be reasonable situations that everybody's going to say, you should take a day off. And you're going to look at them and say, I can't take a day off. I won't take a day off. I'm not going to take a day off. Maybe I'll take a moment. Maybe we'll work something up, but I'm not going to stop what I'm doing, because I know that this process is going to get me the results that I want. And if I follow it every day, then I'll get there. And things are going to happen. Things are going to go up. They're going to go down. I'm going to fail. I'm going to succeed. But if I follow this process, then I'm going to have more wins than losses. And that is something that I've come to realize on my path to success, that I'll say what I've been doing and what I've done in the past is, whenever I hear a really good idea, I will go and I will jump on that. Oh, that worked for you. Let me do that. Oh, that worked for you? Well, I want to do that because what I'm doing hasn't worked for me yet, so let me do what you're doing. And then I'll do that a bunch of times because I'm so eager to succeed that I end up realizing that I built a whole bunch of bridges and I haven't finished one of them. I mean, I don't have one bridge that goes from where I'm at to where I want to be. I got a whole bunch of bridges that stop halfway and a little bit of the way, but I haven't gotten there yet. And the reason that is very simply, right? The bridge analogy we're talking about, literally, if you're trying to get from one side of the island to the other side of the island, you got to finish the bridge to get there. It doesn't really matter if this bridge is going to take longer, if I should have used this material, or it would have been faster if I did this. If you always flow with the wind, then you'll always be changing something. There's always going to be a better approach that you can take. But you're going to want to just say, you know what, I'm going to keep going on this bridge and I will make changes on that way. So another part of the path of success, so when you're on the road to success, you have to be flexible. And flexible, but also focused in what you're doing. So what I mean by focus is, let's build one bridge. I'm going to get from where I'm at to where I'm trying to get to, and I'm going to put a slab on that bridge every single day until I get to the other side. Now, you may make some changes along the way as you make adjustments where, for example, like I was like, okay, I'm making a video every day, but then the videos aren't getting a lot of views. Okay, what can I add to do that? Now, this wasn't something that I did day one, because day one was just hard for me to get the video out. I mean, I had it where my lips were out of sync with the words. I mean, it was ugly. So it was just enough for me to get the video out, and then I had to forgive myself and the perfectionism that I work with, because there's little that I can do to put out a product on day one that I'm going to be comfortable with, because I'm always going to be improving. And so I had to say, you know what? Day one is done. That log is laid. Now, day two, I come out and I make a slight improvement. So day two looks a little bit better. It's lined up a little better. It's a little more sturdy. You don't have to walk on the left side to make sure the right side doesn't pop up. Like, it's much better. And then when you're out on day like 20, when you're now you're like, okay, now I figured out how to lay this slab down well enough, and now I'm ready to move on to working more efficiently. So maybe now what I'll do, right? So for example, I'm making the videos. What I'll do is I'll make 1-minute clips that I can share on different platforms. I'll make memes from the words that I'm saying where it's like quoting me. And these aren't really my ideas. I mean, there a lot of people do them. I've learned to be very comfortable where I don't have to pretend like I've thought of everything. Now that took a little bit of time for me, and we'll get on that around the end. I'm getting ahead of myself, but I've learned to be comfortable with that. As Solomon said, there is nothing new under the sun. That everything's kind of been there and it's been figured out, and so all we can do is really speak with our inner voice. And then the people that resonate with it, they will respond to it. But the idea that I have to create something brand new, I do not subscribe to that. I do not expect that of myself. But so I say all that to say that Gary Vee is someone that I've watched and I've modeled, and Miles Beckler, he's like one of my mentors I actually talk to and engage with on a regular basis, where he talks about how do you get your content in front of people, how do you get attention. And so the way you do that is you got to put it on the platforms. You got to put out the memes that reach back to the video. You got to put out the 1 minute clips, because there's limits on certain platforms and people are busy, so they're not going to watch a whole 15 minutes necessarily, but they'll give you 1 minute or 2 minutes if you put it in and put a little description. But I couldn't do that on day one. As I said, day one was just hard enough to post a video. It was hard enough to just get the video out, and my lips were out of sync with the words, and I mean, it was an ugly video, but I got it out. And now that I kept going, now that I'm able to add this piece, my bridge is looking better. Right? The mistake that I think a lot of us make is we waste a lot of time going backwards to fix the old bricks along the bridge. Where it's like, well, dude, the middle part looks so fresh. I'm embarrassed by the first ones. Well, don't be embarrassed by it. There are people that haven't even put one brick down because they are so uncomfortable with how they will be perceived. But as you've experienced, there is no way to get to that level without putting the first ones down. And if you have the choice between putting the second half down to get where you want to get to, or going back and fixing the first half, what do you think you should choose? Yeah, you should choose the finish, right? Because you're going to get to where you're going to get to. Now, maybe down the road, way down the road, then you'll be so high up that you just won't be concerned about it, where you're going to be like, hey, you know what? That's a part of my story. I don't want to pretend like I was perfect from day one. I want to show people that there was a struggle. Because the other part of why we have unreasonable expectations is because a lot of the times people aren't telling us the whole story. And so it's important for us as we're looking on the path to success to understand that it didn't look as good in the first half as it does in the second half, and that's okay. And that people need to stop redoing the first half where they pretend like that was how it looked the whole time, but it didn't. It's just not possible for it to work that way. The good news is when you put information out, when you first start, many people aren't going to see it because you just started and it's a very loud world and a lot of attention being drawn in all sorts of places. By the time you get to, 30, 60, 100, you're like a pro and you have a little following and people are like, oh yeah, this is great stuff. And they may not ever go back and see your earlier videos, which is a blessing and a curse. Now, if they do go back, it's because you told them to go back and then they saw it and they saw how you struggled. I can tell you the very first video that I had done, it was a Facebook Live video, and it was probably a couple years ago now. I had put up a backdrop, and it wasn't like it was put up very well, so you can see in the video that it starts sliding down as I'm recording. And I mean, people were like messaging me, telling me, and I was just like, but I got it done. I feel really good about that. And then that was what I grew to, right? Full disclosure, I felt like, I should probably redo that video. But then I got super busy, and so I didn't get a chance to redo it, and I'm thankful that happened. And so you want to make sure that as you're going along your path that you don't put these unreasonable expectations on yourself. And we already talked about one of them, which is pretending that you have to create a whole new world. Right? That is just not how the whole thing works, right? There's research being done all the time, but it doesn't mean that it's new results. It's just maybe they tested it slightly differently. And I remember when I got my master's in biblical studies, one of the things that we discussed and we started to notice is that people start wanting to get attention. They want to become famous. So one of the best ways to become famous is to say something that's contrary to what everybody else has said for the past 2,000 years. And then when you do that, everybody's like, oh my goodness, they said what? So, for example, now a lot of the authors of different books of the Bible, they're becoming discussion points where people are like, I don't think that this person wrote that. Even though in the 1st and 2nd century, everybody that was writing was saying this person wrote that. But now, because you want to make a name for yourself, now we're compelled to go against the grain, even though the grain may be the truth. And I'm telling you, don't do that to yourself. Don't put that much pressure on yourself where you have to literally create a reality that may not even exist because you're so focused on the way to separate and make a distinction for yourself, right? There is nothing new under the sun. And so just accept that, be comfortable with that. Obviously, when you just put your own interpretation on information, you find that it works very well. There are tons of people in talk radio, very famous, with millions and millions and millions of listeners who make hundreds of millions of dollars all the time. And they spend most of the time telling you their opinions about work that other people wrote. Where they'll read the New York Times article, they'll play a clip from someone else on the TV, and then they'll tell you how they interpreted it. Right, that's literally, there's nothing new under the sun, and they have accepted that. They don't force themselves to find that one story, that cool angle. They're like, no, people are listening to me because it makes it new just by the fact that it's the way I perceive it, the way that I interpret it, is my words when I'm explaining it. And that's the same way that you should look at it. Do not expect yourself to create brand new information, because that's just not the way that things work. And if you put that pressure on yourself, then you may find yourself creating results that aren't necessarily spoken within the evidence that you've gathered. Right? Just don't put that pressure on yourself. And then the second part that you don't want to do on your path to success, understand that perfection is for people that are not accomplishing anything. Right? Perfection is the idea that I'm going to be able to always make this amazing, and I'm going to cut and redo and edit. Right? Like, you'll notice that in my videos, for me to be able to put a video out every single day, for me to be able to make an article and the podcast episode, for me to start making the memes and the 1-minute clips, I don't have the ability to make a lot of cuts in the videos. So you may hear an here or a stutter there, but generally I've gotten better in the sense that what I do is I'll pause and think about what I'm going to say next. I do the prep ahead of time to make sure that I have the flow of the things I'm going to touch on. But overall, whatever kind of product is out there, that's going to be the product that's out there. Now, I have gotten better where I will make an edit at the beginning and the end. So at the end, I'll put it out and you'll see me lean down and turn off the video, and you'll see the top of my bald head. So I figured that was something that we could probably cut out, right? Like, I can do that in a couple seconds. I don't think that that's perfectionism. That's just me being professional, right? That's professionalism. Now, what I will say is, in the very beginning, I didn't have time to do that. Again, it was just a struggle for me to get the video out in whatever way that video was put out. And then as things have gotten better, as I've gotten better, as I've strengthened, I have found that I have more time. And now that I have more time, I'm able to make changes. I'm able to add stuff in. Still not getting crazy, because I've already taken large strides to deal with that perfectionism, because I put some really bad, some really rough around the edges videos out early. But I'll equate it to, and I've heard it before, and they basically said, if you put out a C product can change someone's life. An A product can definitely change someone's life. Not putting anything out won't change anyone's life. And so I put the onus on the execution more than anything else, that I have to execute. That if I want to prepare for something, that's fine. I'm going to prepare for it. But at some point in time, I'm cutting it off and I'm going to push record. And I'm going to put the information out there. And so you want to make sure that as you are on your path to success, that you keep going one step at a time. You got to be consistent. You have to be consistent. If you can be consistent, I promise you, you'll get stronger, better, faster. And then what you'll do is you'll then end this by saying, okay, well, I'm going to always put in 100% effort. And I'm going to touch on a little bit in another episode, but the idea of your 100% is that number changes. Right, so 100% for me on day one is just putting the video out, and it was low quality, and it wasn't edited in any way. It was just me putting the video out. And then on day 10, to do that only requires 30%. So that means I got to fill up the other 70% with other stuff. So then you add in the editing, then you add in the memes, and you add in the 1-minute clips, and now I'm back at 100%. But the idea is, if you do this over the stretch of a year, what would be your 100% by the end of the year as you continue to get bigger, stronger, faster? See, the mistake I believe that some of us make is we say, well, this was 100% on day one. Some of you are putting in 300% on day one, and then you're surprised that you get burned out. Well, don't be surprised. You put in 300%. That's not a long-term plan. Right? That is not going to work long-term. But I do want to remind the people that did put 100% on day one, and then it faded down where now that's only 40%. Why are you slacking? Why are you slacking on the other 60%? I need you to add 60% in. There's been something that you've learned along the way. I use the analogy of fog, where each time you take a step, the fog clears a little more and you can see a little further. Every time you take a step on this journey, you have cleared the fog a little bit. You can see a little further, and now you know something that you need to change, right? Like, I know from creating a video every single day that doesn't mean that people are going to see it, that I have to do something else to help people see the video. And so that's the clips and the memes and the micro sending out pieces of that same large information. Right, that is something that I would not have known unless I made the video every single day. So for me to then say, well, on January 1st, you said you're going to do this, and that's what we're going to do the whole year. Well, that's ignoring all the growth and progress that's available to you. And if you are striving to chase this happiness by rising to the challenge, then that is not a one-time thing. You're going to continually have to rise to the challenge. Things are going to get easier for you. If you think of a video game, you can't say, well, I'm on level 1, and then the level 1 person, it takes you a difficult time to beat them, but then you get to the end of the game, well, that person needs to be at like level 100 because you have gone 100 levels since you started. And so I want you to look at your life that way, where you go up each level. As you get stronger, the game should get harder. Like, you should match it. It would be a boring game for you just to go through at level 100 and everybody's still from the level 1 stack, so every time you take one swing, they're gone. It would be nice that they get stronger with you. And so for in real life, you have to put that on yourself, that you have to challenge yourself consistently as you put more information out, as you get stronger, that you have to demand more of yourself. And then that's going to be it. That's going to be our mindset moment. If you put this together, I'm telling you that that's what the path of success looks like for the average person. That's what the path has looked like for me. These are the lessons that I've learned so far. Now, there's going to be people that are further along than me that may have stuff to add on to that, and I can appreciate that. I don't want to make anything up. I mean, this is what my path looks like, and this is what the research that I have found that's consistent among other people's paths. So again, I'm always thankful for your time. If you've enjoyed this, go ahead and just let me know in a comment or review or a reshare or whatever, the one thing that you have as your takeaway on your path to success that you're going to implement today. We're big on taking action, guys. That one thing that you're going to implement today, or the one takeaway that you have, that you're going to have a mindset shift that's going to help you to rise to that Achoja challenge and as you're chasing happiness. Until next time, continue blessings on your journey to become the champion of your life.